Hey everybody, welcome back to the Firefighters podcast. This week we've been down in London recognising and celebrating people alongside Fire Magazine at their 7th annual Excellence in Fire and Emergency Awards. Now this is put together every single year to recognise and celebrate the achievements of fire and emergency services. It's pretty much where chief fire officers, their teams, industry supporters and suppliers of the frontline firefighters come together and celebrate the work of the brigades, the teams, the individuals who have really gone above and beyond to make the difference. Now we've been without this for a couple of years, but as we all know, and as you've heard featured on the podcast, people in the frontline services have not been sat on their bottoms doing absolutely nothing. They have been constantly out there, being resourceful, supporting the people of their communities, and kind of like innovating and changing through this entire period of time. It was incredible to get invited down to be part of this, and it's a privilege to be bringing those stories to you today. So we had a chat with the organisers, we had a chat with some of the people nominated for the awards, and you're going to hear about it firsthand right here. And once again, today's Flashpoint was brought to you by the incredible William Wood Watches, one of our most favourite partners of the podcast. I did get a whole bunch of questions about my watch. I was wearing my Valiant when I was down there. Whether you remember the fire service, whether you're retired, or even if you are just a fan of the emergency services and you want a piece of history on your wrist, WilliamWoodWatches.com is the place to go. These watches are actually made from upcycled fire and rescue equipment. Pretty much everywhere you look on the watch, whether it's the straps that are made from upcycled fire hose, or it's the 1920s British brass firefighter's helmet that gets melted down and put into the crown of the watch, comes in this beautifully branded box. They make for perfect Christmas gifts. Or even if someone's retiring from the fire service. There's so many services actually taking these on board as well and doing special ones with their services badge in the back of it, and firefighters are getting their service numbers put on it as well. I know a couple of people that have bought them for their partners. I wasn't actually given mine as a gift, I just bought it myself. And then from that we developed a relationship with William Wood Watches. They're a partner of the podcast because it's got such a great story behind it. Johnny Garrett, who's the CEO of the company, is actually his grandfather, William Wood, and he served in the British Fire Service for 25 years. He won a whole bunch of commendations for his bravery, and the whole thing was kind of made in legacy of his name. They've sold them in over 50 different countries. They've been recognised in GQ, in Esquire, in Men's Health, and they've donated over £75,000 to international firefighting charities. So this is your chance to be part of that legacy if you head on over to WilliamWoodWatches.com. Check out some of the incredible designs they've got there. Supporting our partners really is the best way to support the podcast. So with those acknowledgements done, it's time for us to move on to recognising, celebrating and acknowledging the other heroes of our fire and emergency sector. So let's jump in and take a listen to what happened when we went down and supported the Excellence in Fire and Emergency Awards. And we're going to kick the whole thing off when I had my first conversation with Sabrina Cohen-Hatton, who's going to be a future guest on the podcast. She was, of course, down there. She's a massive fan of celebrating, recognising, and acknowledging people when they really do step up and go above and beyond for the communities. So without further ado, if you're sitting comfortably, let's jump on in there and I will see you boys and girls on the other side. Sabrina, welcome back to the awards this year. How are you?
Thank you. Very well, thanks. How are you?
I'm fantastic. A little bit nervous. There's some incredible people in the room today, including yourself. What's it been like over the past sort of 2 years? We've not had an opportunity to acknowledge and recognise people in the same way that we have traditionally, perhaps. But there's been some incredible projects going on. People haven't been sat down doing nothing.
I think that's absolutely right. And I think one thing that the last 2 years has shown us is that we can't control what happens to us. We can't even control how we feel about it. But what we do have some agency over is what we do about it next. And what I would say is I've seen across the sector over the last 2 years some incredible people doing some extraordinary things, and even when it's difficult, getting up every single day and putting their best foot forward and making a difference to people, even when it's in a way that they might not have ever really envisaged, but they really, really have. And I think for me, that fills me with such a sense of inspiration. I'm absolutely delighted that we can all come together today and bring everyone together and recognise some of that incredible work that people have done.
I love that. I mean, I'm reflecting back when I hear you there talking about control the controllables, reflecting back to your book. You've done some incredibly diverse work across your career as well. Thinking of that eternal problem solver, what are some of the awards that you're most interested in seeing today? I know we're not allowed to have favourites, but that resourceful eternal problem solver within most emergency services operators. We're looking at Project of the Year, we're looking at collaborators. What are some of the most exciting things you've seen?
We are, and I think for me, my favourite one, without a shadow of a doubt, is the Unsung Hero Award.
Love it.
And for me, this really does embody the spirit of the fire service, doesn't it?
Yeah.
A group of people who get up every day believing they're ordinary people, but they do absolutely extraordinary things, and they don't ask for praise, they don't ask for a fanfare, they work with such humility, but They make such a difference. Such a difference. It never ceases to amaze me that if you take just one firefighter and you think about all of the people that they've helped, all of those faces, by the time you retire, there's no way you're going to remember everyone's face, but I can guarantee there are thousands of faces that will never forget yours. And so for me, that Unsung Hero Award really does embody that spirit of people who get up, they don't ask for anything, they genuinely want to help other people when they need them.
I had to fight my urge to interrupt you and high five for a second there, because if that doesn't perfectly articulate the purpose of the podcast, what is it about that the Unsung Hero feels like a Western analogy of our entire sort of approach sometimes to emergency services? I know sometimes the people across the pond, our friends over there and colleagues, are maybe a little bit more, they lean into the high five and acknowledgement. Why do we find it challenging sometimes? I mean, it's amazing to have these events, but there's an aspect where I feel like, why aren't we doing this more every day? It's important to have this, and acknowledgement is getting better. We're recognising people a bit more, but it's the aspect of, what gets recognised and rewarded gets repeated. So how do we make these type of awards more of a familiar thing within our services so that acknowledgement doesn't have to wait till once a year?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, actually. And I think one of the reasons why people don't always kind of lean into it is because the team spirit in UK fire and rescue in particular is so strong that we all know that we can't do it on our own. We all know that it's a team effort to make these things work, and it's certainly true that our value is greater as a whole than the sum of our parts. It really is. So I think sometimes when you have a group of people who genuinely join a profession, a vocation, because it's not just a job, is it?
Absolutely not.
It's such a vocation. But when you join a vocation knowing that you want to help other people, to be someone who thinks that they can help someone when they're having the worst day that they've ever had, you don't go into that for praise, you don't go into that for a high five. But I do think that subsequently we forget just how incredible the people that we work with are. And it's not just the frontline firefighters, it's the rest of the staff who make up our fire family. And it is a massive fire family. So if you don't have your mechanics, you're not going to have fire engines that are on the run. If you don't have your airwave technicians, I can't communicate when I'm on a fire ground. If I don't have a prevention team, I know that we don't stand as good a chance of stopping people from having that worst ever day. So actually there's something for me about how our entire team comes together and they recognise the individual part that they play in that. And I do think it's important to highlight that work, because we always think about things at the sharp end, at the devastation once that's happened. Actually, I think if we take a step back and we recognise that machinery and everything that goes into stopping that from happening at the first place, the entire family, then that really embodies what we do. So yeah, I think that it's important to recognise people more. I think it's important to say thank you and to recognise the effort that people put in every single day, because we all work in our own contexts, and people have got things going on and have difficult days, and you never know what someone might have gone through that day before you're interacting with them, but people still pick themselves up by their bootstraps, and they come to work and they do what they need to do to keep the fire service running. So there is something about recognising that. But equally, I think that there's something really special about putting on an event like this, where everyone can come together and recognise in front of colleagues, not just from around the country, but from around the world, and talk about the incredible work that the British Fire and Rescue Service does.
We really are held in quite high regard. We've been lucky enough to have guests from all over the world on the podcast, and we echoed about that pride aspect. I think one of the most important things that I'm enjoying most about this whole journey for me personally is capturing those almost like it's a bit like a time capsule in audible form, to be able to recognise, like you were both said, but also so the lessons don't have to be learnt twice. The idea of the emergency services is that we attend these incidents, they're unpredictable, they're dynamic, but ideally, once we've gone and seen great practice, we should try and recognise it and share that. Is there an aspect of pride there in that we want people to be able to share their experiences without feeling like it's all about me, it's all about me? You've come upon, taken it upon yourself to write a book and sort of capture down your learnings. You've had a really challenging experience from childhood, going through the different living conditions, and then really, you said, pulling it by bootstraps, going on and really leaning into personal and professional development to take you where you are. How did you find that within you to go, okay, I need to get over myself and capture these learnings? Because I've taken so much away from your book, as I know so many other people will. How do we encourage more people to do that? Because I think that's the best way for us all to learn from examples of yourselves and the people here today.
Oh, it's very kind of you to say. And I honestly think for me, the most important thing is to embrace the things that don't go so well. When we look around the place and we see people, and I used to feel like a right imposter in the fire service, I'll be honest, because
I still do,
I'd see,
all the time.
I still do. You see these incredible leaders who are absolutely invincible, kind of people who you'd swear would go to sleep in their chainmail, and I used to look at them and think, I cannot compete with this. That's not me. There are things that happen that I've done wrong. There are things that make me feel really vulnerable. So, how do you share that? And when I did start to talk about those experiences that I had, what I realised is I had to completely reframe how I saw both leaders in the fire service, but also how I saw firefighters more generally, because actually no one's infallible. We all make mistakes. We all have things that happen to us that make us feel like they're not our finest hour, or we might regret it. And you know what? That's normal. And the thing is, when you see people, everyone wants to put their best foot forward, don't they? Everyone wants to share the things that they've done right and their successes.
I don't want to lose face. There's that public aspect of I don't want to embarrass myself. But you can save somebody else from making the same mistake. Exactly. When I read yours, I thought, oh God, rather than me wandering around bumping into things in the dark, here's one method, not the only method, but here's somebody that's really come from some challenging backgrounds, as well as so many other people in the fire service, and they've found the strength within their surroundings, within their family, their wider emergency services family, to develop themselves. And now they have got such an incredible story to share, and I love that you're here today supporting it, and Andrew and Fire Knowledge and everybody else. It's a really special event. Thank you for inviting us all.
Thank you for having me.
My name's Jules King.
Jules, welcome back to the Emergency Awards. How are you?
Thank you. Very well. And about yourself?
Fantastic. I'm a little bit nervous and overwhelmed, in all honesty, to be around some incredible people. It's actually the first time I've attended this year. Now, we've not been able to have these awards over the past 2 years, really.
Yeah.
Why do you think it's so important that they're coming back? We're all able to be here, acknowledge and recognise each other. It's pretty special.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, and you can certainly feel the excitement in the air. We've come up here with masks on our face on the trains and everything else, and people are just a little bit uncertain, or can I hug you? How close can I get to you? Because there is a real sense of excitement that it's been a tough time for for society for the last 2 years, but there are some real opportunities to celebrate some outstanding work through the fire and rescue service and other areas over the last couple of years, and so that's why I think people are really excited to be here. And I know that tickets have been really difficult to get hold of. Yes, yeah, absolutely.
We've said about how many challenges communities have gone through. We've still been out there, no breaks for us, always on the front lines. We talk about this eternal problem solver that we see in the fire service and how we need to improvise, adapt and overcome. From that, there's a number of awards that are going to look at projects and innovation and collaborations. What are some of the things, I know there's so many more for us, to more than we can acknowledge, but which things are you most excited about, and why is it important that we are here seeing those innovations come through? Because we need to keep changing. The evolution of change is happening all the time.
Of course we do. And the fire service is the fire service, and we're always going to need to be there for emergencies. But there are opportunities. We've got to take some positivity from this awful pandemic, and not least, around the virtual engagement, the opportunities that it presents.
Has been incredible. That's accelerated, hasn't it? The way that we've interacted with each other has really been a testimony to our resourcefulness, isn't it?
And when we had to physically come together, and I speak as a woman in the fire service with a lot of people who have children, and they can't get to those physical events. But now it's virtually. I can engage, So I'm from East Sussex, and we've been doing a befriending scheme. So we haven't been able to go out and do our physical home safety visits. But there are people out there who've genuinely been so isolated on their own, and at one time in the week, someone from the fire service just picks up the phone and just rings and how are you, and it's just meant the world to them, and I think that is something that we need to hang on to, and we probably won't go back from this opportunity.
When people say that new normal, we've got to still take some of this with us. We've had an acceleration of change, and it's not a case of that was for then, this is for now. A lot of this can really empower us, both in terms of who we recruit in our wider family. So the operational staff are obviously fixed to stations at times, but in terms of our control staff or administrative roles, it really does expand the ability to have more people in the fire service than we've ever had before. How do you see this technological aspect helping us recruit people that before, because of physical or geographical issues, would never have been able to be part of the fire service before?
most people don't need the fire and rescue service, unless it's an emergency, and thankfully that's a small percentage of people. And there really is still an element of the community don't know the breadth of work that the fire and rescue service engage in, and I think there's a real opportunity to show people through podcasts, through videos, through or social media, etc. Just little snippets to prick people's interest and think, oh, I didn't know that the fire and rescue service can do that. The importance of engaging with the youth. That there are opportunities not just for firefighters, but in the fire and rescue service is a career, and it's a choice for you.
You spoke there about engaging more in different ways that we engage. The days of articles and posters and stuff like that still have their place in ways, but we need to speak to people in a way that they're going to be able to hear us. I do think there's this whole fear of the fear of change, but also the fear of professional suicide. People don't want to sometimes articulate themselves because maybe they're a bit scared. Sometimes maybe they're not as confident. How do we overcome that barrier? Because it's one of the best ways for us to communicate with the public. And also, I want to ask you about, you said about our changing roles and the people don't know what the fire service do. We need to continue to evolve as our communities evolve and find a place for the fire service that continues, because of our own success, fires are less frequent than they used to be. But you said yourself, we operate in so many different ways. How can we change both to keep engaging with the public and change our roles that we can remain valuable and that people can see the fire service as a source of good for us to help them in so many more ways?
One of the things that's really important around the technological advances, I was just getting my booster jab just a couple of days ago, and there was someone there who said, I can't wait in this queue for this amount of time, I want to come back another time. I said, well, have you been online? And I don't have a phone, I don't have the internet, and actually we need to make sure we don't lose that part of society as well.
We don't want to get elitist where we're like, well, everyone's got a phone. Maybe not.
Yeah,
they may be
absolutely.
in such a socioeconomic state that they don't have access to these things that we consider every day. Society has gotten so wide in terms of the people that are really struggling.
Yes.
We don't want them to fall off the radar completely, do we? So there is still a place for that in-person engagement as well.
Yeah, without doubt, and that will always be really, really important. But I think, it's a bit of a both and scenario. It's not either or, and what's really important is we need to remember the bits to take with us. So what from our past is great that we should never let go, and what are the things that we should progress and challenge ourselves to change. And I think the youth can help with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Without a doubt.
Because they've been conditioned and they think in such a different way that for us, I would say sometimes one of the most biggest challenges we face is having really driven, really passionate people, really professional people, but in that fixed mindset and trying to fracture out of that, not dogma, but like you say, we've had a different upbringing, people have had different experiences. I wanted to ask you finally, Jules, you said about acknowledgement and women in the fire service. So we've seen a massive sort of recognition and support structure for women that are trying to overcome challenges that historically would have meant they couldn't develop both laterally and vertically in the emergency services. How valuable do you think this is that we continue to give that support to it? We spoke to Sabrina, she's upstairs today, people such as yourself leading in the emergency services. How do we do more of that, and what ways are you engaging in that sort of support for people?
So I'm actually the chair of Women in the Fire Service, which is the reason why I'm here today. So I'm very, very passionate about taking on women and supporters of as well. So it's not just women. We need people to engage with everybody. And I think when you look at the statistics, that operational representation of women is still reasonably low.
Is it less than 17%? We're right in saying
it's
that?
So operationally across the country is about 7 or 8%, but it was about 1. Yeah, but it was about 1 when I joined.
Yeah.
But I guess but it's not just the operational staff as well. Like I said before, it is about engaging in the fire and rescue service. And actually, if we look across the room now, there's a really good proportion of men to women. And one of the colleagues that I've come with today is one of our fire cadets, and she's only 17. She's been nominated for the Youth Award today.
That's really exciting. I've done a lot of work with the cadets in the past and trying to still find a way again to engage with them rather than wanting to. I mean, they can do lots of different careers, but this is such an incredibly exciting thing to be part of. You've seen it for years. How do we keep that excitement going for that next year? Because we're at that stage, I think, where We're seeing a massive turnover across
Yes,
the UK. People are
we
coming up
will.
to retirement
Correct.
in droves. We're going to hemorrhage experience and things like that.
Yes.
So this aspect of recruitment, I almost feel is more important now than ever that we do it in the right way.
Yeah, I think you're right. And to go back to your earlier point where you talk about the way that we've had to change and maybe people feeling a bit anxious about, engaging with the community, etc. If you think about prevention, protection and response, we need to engage so much more about prevention and protection because we need to stop those incidents from happening in the first place. We need to make sure that we understand our built environment. And finally, the response is the last bit. And so we need good communicators. We need fantastically trained firefighters. But you're right, I think the modern day firefighter needs to be good at all of those things in equal proportions.
Thank you, Jules.
Thank you very much.
Jules early.
Jules, how are you finding the awards? Is this the first time you've ever been?
Yes, it's very good so far. I'm really excited because I've never been to anything like this before.
Have you not?
No, I haven't.
I'll be honest, it's my first time as well.
Really?
Yeah, it is, yeah.
So I am really excited.
There's some incredible people in the room. Now, you're here as part of the Fire Cadets with East Sussex,
Yeah.
with obviously your Chief Fire Officer, Jules. How come you've managed to come? It's a hell of an invitation to get. What are you here being recognised for and what are you here doing?
I've been nominated for Youth Champion of the Year. I'm pretty sure it's by Jules as well. So when I got told that I was shortlisted and been able to come down here, I was just mind blown with the fact that I even got shortlisted and was able to come down to an event like this. And I'm just really excited.
So Youth Champion of the Year.
Yeah.
Why have you been nominated for it? What is the Cadets involved with this year? Because the Cadets is worldwide, but it's also obviously all across UK
Yeah.
Fire and Rescue Services. For anybody that's completely unfamiliar with it, what is Fire Cadets? What ages do they serve? What sort of stuff do you get involved in?
Okay, so Fire Cadets is normally from 13 to 18, I think. I only started when I was about 16
Why did you want to do it?
because I want to be in the fire service.
Okay.
That's all I've ever wanted to do. It's not been anything else. So when I found out that Fire Cadets were coming to East Sussex, I put my name straight away on that list.
What was your
Yeah,
first session
part
like?
of it.
What did you do?
So obviously we all got there, we all met each other, and it was just kind of going through the basic stuff of what we were doing. We get this book, and I think you get a BTEC out of it, and you just do a few questions and things like that. It's not like exams or anything, because personally I worry a lot about exams. So when I found out I didn't have to do an exam, I was like, okay, good.
Well, a lot of people in the fire service are definitely more kinesthetic learners. I'm not very good with exams.
Yeah.
I think my literacy is horrific.
Yeah.
But so we don't put anybody off. It's not all a development folder. You actually do a lot of physical stuff as well,
Yeah,
don't you? You're
no.
able to get the kit off. What sort of stuff do you do similar to operational firefighters?
Yeah. I think mainly when we do written stuff,
Yep.
it's when it's normally quite cold outside or it's raining or if they've just got activities for us inside. But we are always mainly outside doing something, which is what I enjoy because I'm not very academic.
Yeah.
So when I can get my hands on things and do it, then that's what I enjoy the most.
How come you've been nominated for the Youth Champion?
Well, I've done a lot with the Fire Cadets. So I was part of the Remembrance Parade in London a few weeks ago.
How was that?
That was amazing,
Yeah.
honestly. I've never experienced anything like that, but it was really good.
Yeah.
And I've helped with women in the fire service. I've watched their Zoom calls and things like that. And then I did a meeting with Jules, where it was Jules Meet Jules,
No,
which was really good. That was a lot of fun. But yeah, I try to help a lot with the Fire Cadets because it means a lot to me.
Yes. So you do get a formal qualification out of it, and also really sets you up well for sort of the process. You say you
Yeah.
want to join, and so do you think you'll go for on call or whole time, or how old can you do that?
Definitely I will go for whole time,
Okay.
but if it comes to it that I can do on call and apply further on later for whole time, then that's what I will do because I'll do anything to get in the fire service.
Thank you for coming and talk to us.
No worries.
Good luck today.
Thank you.
Mark Warwick, Lancashire Fire and Rescue.
Sarah Holden, Lancashire Fire and Rescue.
Guys, welcome back to the Emergency Awards. How are we doing?
All good, yeah.
It's pretty exciting for everybody to be back. Why do you think it's important that we keep doing stuff like this? We've gone through some incredible challenges, incredible changes and innovation. Why is it so important that we keep doing this?
But as you mentioned, we've been 2 years where we haven't been able to do anything, and to be fair, it's taken me back a little bit that we're actually all together and it feels normal. But we're really enjoying being together with our colleagues in the industry. And such a fantastic venue as well. It's really, really good.
Now, there's a really massive variety of awards that people will be getting today. What are some of the most exciting things that you're looking forward to? Because we've seen because of technology and everything like that, we've seen some big changes, but also people's constant creativity and eternal problem solver mindset that we see in the fire service, people have kept pushing the boundaries of what we're delivering to the communities, I suppose.
Yeah, I'm really excited about these awards today, because in the last 2 years everything's changed with fire and rescue, and we're now, as of earlier in the year, we're now vaccinating, we're helping people in other circumstances. It is, like people say, it's not just fires, there's so many other ways that we can help people. So hopefully this awards today will recognise how diverse we've become over the last 12 months.
Now, we said there about different ways to serve our communities. That's changing every single day, really. I know we've been so successful in prevention over the past 3 decades that has almost become less of a demand on our time, but the needs of the communities is ever expanding. How do we continue to keep ourselves relevant and also keep ourselves vital to serve in the communities?
And I think that connection with what's going on nationally is really vital where we are. So the role of the firefighter is changing. Evidently it's changed in the last 2 years. Where we can help, where we can support, where we can go in collaborative opportunities is forever expanding. And I think wherever we can be at areas of most need, we'll find a fire service or we'll be there as best we can.
Needs. There are so many needs. We just
fully agree.
Kid in a sweet shop. We'd almost need to choose and say, look, we are incredibly resourceful. We're like master problem solvers. Do you know what I mean? We've got a toolkit and we've got a skill set. What do we want to choose to apply to?
And I think you're absolutely right. An example of that for Lancashire is where we've got a resource where we could help the vaccination programme in particular, and we were able to repurpose at the drop of a hat and help in expanding that and roll out across the NHS, across Lancashire. Hopefully, in that time we've saved more lives than we've ever done in our normal day-to-day work. So,
you know what, you made a great point there, and it reminds me of a previous guest we had on that was utilising drones to deliver cures in like countries where it was really challenging geographically. So a drone can fly thousands of miles really quickly and drop off these little refrigerated capsules of medication.
Amazing.
That sort of technology, it may not be a copy and paste to the UK, but things like that's the ever-expanding service that we can absolutely get involved with.
Absolutely, and Lancashire have done really well in the drone front as well. So drones have been fantastic. Another area is going is the subsurface rescues with drones. So the robot firefighting as well, as we've seen over in France. There's areas everywhere. It's absolutely incredible. But there's things that we can, with each service has their own challenges. And it's how we adopt these innovations to make sure that we're really, really effective.
How, as leaders in the service, how do you help people adopt those changes? People always say that firefighters especially can sometimes struggle with change. We get used to the way things are, but I say to people the only constant now is change. As more technology collides with the needs of society, change is going to be ongoing. So how do we manage and lead change, and how do we help people be more accepting of the fact that we need to keep changing, we need to keep innovating, we all need to keep learning, whether you've been in 1 year or 50 years. We're not finished learning, we've got to keep learning.
I think people, firefighters especially, are more motivated about change more than ever. They've seen the changes in the last 12 months, and any changes or any more changes that are to come, they're going to embrace. The changes have been so positive. It excites me to think where we're going to be in 12 months or 2 years or 10 years as far as fire and rescue.
Now we're going through a period where we're doing a massive amount of recruitment as well. We are, we've had lots of experience leave the services. We're kind of at that window where people have come up to their retirement. So we're now looking at new people joining the UK Fire and Rescue Service all over the country. What advice would you have for somebody wanting to join the service in this new fire service that we exist in?
Absolutely, and linking on to what Sarah's just said there, we've come from a place where financially we had to cut back, and the retirement profiles caught up with us. But now we're getting the influx of the new blood, and this is where, when we look at change, the younger blood, the people that are coming through are open to change. They've got the new ideas, they've got the innovation.
We've got to capture that wave,
absolutely,
be on the crest of that wave as it comes in, and still keep some of the best things that work, embrace those mentors on stations and stuff like that, but still keep their excitement, and they've been conditioned to a new world as well. These people have grown up in a different age. So do you think there'll be more acceptance of the technological changes and how we look at recruitment?
The tradition is definitely our strong point, our core RTC fires. We don't want to lose that. You look at the building that we're in today, you look at the uniforms that we wear today, it says a lot about where we are. But I think from a new recruit perspective, they've got the technology, the forward thinking, the innovation for things like drones, and some of the challenges that we're coming through with things like Grenfell, what happened at the MEN, and some of the emerging risks as well.
Don't they?
They've
got
it from a different views. Absolutely,
yeah. Have you got anybody up for any awards this year? Who are we excited to see?
So I'd like to think that Our Fire Service of the Year. Some of the things that we've done this year regarding vaccinations, our COVID response, and some of the duties that we've been doing has put us in real good stead. The Partnership of the Year awards, again with the NHS, has been fantastic. And I can't say enough about our young people work with Prince's Trusts, fire cadets, things like that. So
we really want to be screaming that from the rooftops, and I'm just going to sort of catch you there, because you said that with a slight aspect of trepidation. It's nice for us to be, I'm not saying you're not proud, you're obviously proud of what you've done, but how do we make people really not be ego scream from the rooftops, but acknowledge each other more and really be proud to say, you know what, yeah, Lancashire, Essex, London, whoever, I've done a great job and we are so proud of it, and I'm willing to stand up there and sing our praises.
It's absolutely about what sort of message we send. What we are as a service traditionally is we don't like the spotlight on us. We don't like celebrating the good work that we do. It's like it's part of our job. Well, no, let's celebrate. We all know what good jobs we do. We know how flexible we can be. We need to shout about that. You're absolutely right. Things like podcasts, things like celebrating where we are. I'll shout from the roofs how good we are, because I think fire service in the UK is fantastic. We need to tell people how good we are, how adaptable and flexible we are to change to the sort of challenges and emerging risks that are coming forward. So yeah,
you're absolutely right, and I can echo that. We've had guests on from over 50 countries now, and the UK Fire and Rescue Service is still held in really high regard. From our skill sets, our history, you know, the way that we continue to learn, we're on the tip of the sword, sometimes because of our incidents, but also because of our constant willingness to develop. So I'm really excited to where we're going to go.
And you're absolutely right. From a culture perspective, I'm 30 years. Next year, I've been in the service 30 years. I'm still humbled and proud, and I'm still energised as I was a recruit coming through 30 years ago to come to work. So things like this coming up gives us a chance to actually put our foot on the ball and go, we are really good. We are really good.
Thanks so much, Oaks. Good luck.
Thank you.
Paul Spade.
Paul, how you doing, brother? What's it like to be back at the Emergency Awards?
Great, to be honest. This is I've been looking third time.
Third time?
Yeah, first year we kind of won an award for the VF4 car. Okay. Then we had some virtual reality. We got nominated, shortlisted. Unfortunately, we didn't win, but we were beat by, I can't think the service, but it was a really good project.
So I know it's something we're going to speak about in a future episode, but for anybody that's unfamiliar, how does virtual reality fit into the fire and emergency?
Oh, it's tailor-made. I mean, I think any services which aren't looking into virtual reality to improve training, I think they need to give me a phone call.
So you've kind of pioneered it, you've been all over the world, you've been asked to visit America and places like that, because it really is so much more interactive way than the old posters and presentations that people of old are used to. How are we using it now? You said about this VF4 thing, your service is kind of leading it in the UK, isn't it?
Yeah, when I say we've been lucky, I said I've been lucky. when you've got, I'd say, senior managers of, I want to say visionaries, they're open to change, and they kind of let me get on with what I do well.
That must be quite scary for people. How do we allow more of that? Because we're here recognising and acknowledging people, but I always say one of the biggest challenges we face in the emergency services is actually, ironically, really intelligent, really driven people that are in a fixed mindset. You are trying new things. The podcast is a new and scary thing for some people, but we're seeing the signs, we're seeing the small seeds of chiefs coming on and doing this, services doing that. How do we create more of that, and why are people so scared of it?
Everyone's scared of change. I'm 60 now. I'm scared of change. I'm petrified of change. I can't retire because I'm scared of what might happen. But I've looked and I've seen the future. And I did a talk last week in London to data analysts from all over the world and showed them our digital twin where we train for fire investigation, and they were absolutely amazed. They couldn't think of data being used in that way. And from there, I've now made some really good links into the data world and how we can start analysing the data from our training, which will then improve our training as a service. But I think more importantly, it will enable us then to drill down to the individual, so we can have an individually tailored package for yourself, rather than kind of, here you need to learn all that. We don't do that now. Well, we do, but we could change it so you actually get something which is unique to you.
Training scenarios are so challenging and often very expensive. So you said there about different scenarios, so from fire investigation to branch techniques to all kinds of different stuff, not just road traffic collision where perhaps people have traditionally seen it. How much of a colossal cost saver is this when people can run, like you said, specific drills to the individual on the subject matter? They can just run them one after another, make those small variations to really tailor that person's development.
Yeah, I think what people have to look at, the cost saving isn't like now, it's 3, 5, 10 years down the line. Yeah. For instance, there's some equipment we borrowed once from the Fire Service College, a company called Flame, and we're going to borrow it again. But we can do door entry procedures in VR. You wear a heat jacket, you've got a branch and hose in your hand, which is real.
That's surreal.
When
you wear that, it's crazy.
Get your head around this. In the virtual world, it doesn't exist, does it? No. But how
debatable, but go on.
But how can you pick up real hose and branch?
Yeah.
And when you open it up, it's connected to the pulley system, which gives you feedback.
And you feel that kick.
Yeah.
And then, like you say, as you approach the theoretical virtual reality world of the fire, that jacket heats up. When you apply, correct gas cooling versus poor gas cooling, it responds. It's dynamic. It reacts to it. That's huge.
Yeah, and the benefit.
From fire behaviour for everything as well. You
can do it on station.
Yeah.
And if you've got your BA re-accreditation coming up, you could train 6 months before. So when you go for your accreditation, the procedure's ingrained in your mind. Nobody gets hurt in virtual reality unless you trip over your own feet, and I cannot stop that happening. I've seen it happen.
You can't out-engineer all of that stuff, folks. You've still got to have a little bit of common sense.
No, I mean we could add that to the kind of the introduction. You have to put left foot in front of right foot, or right in front of left, but don't do them both at the same time.
So you're nominated for an award today. Other than yourself, what sort of stuff are you excited to see? We're looking down the list of awards. It really is a massive collection of individuals from the UK Fire and Rescue Service.
I think it's a fantastic time in the UK Fire and Rescue Service. I think we're leading the way, not just nationally, but internationally. People are looking.
You've seen that globally. We're still very respected about how professional and competent and developed our fire service is, I suppose.
Yeah, I've been really, really lucky. I've been to the States a couple of times to the Fire Department Instructors Conference, run a workshop on virtual reality. I've been into Europe half a dozen times doing talks, and if it wasn't for COVID, I'd still be going into Europe. But it's starting to kind of come back into life now, kind of face to face. I think the biggest thing with virtual reality training, it's putting the headsets on people, let them experience it, then they're sold. I could sit in front of them and be.
It looks strange from the outside, but once you're in it, you don't want to do anything else.
And
it's another tool. We're not going to do this and no practical training, but it makes it a much more effective tool for people to use. Blended approach.
This is
beautiful.
One of the
people
biggest,
learn differently as well.
Yeah, and one of the biggest obstacles is people think it's going to take over what they do. But it's not. It's going to enhance what they do. It's going to make, say for instance, breathing apparatus. If they come to a breathing apparatus course and they've been doing it in VR for the last 3 or 4 months, the procedures are going to be correct. So the training is going to be far more beneficial, not just for the trainee, but for the instructors, because they're going to get far more out of it.
And the technology is just accelerated because the corporate world is utilising this technology for gaming and everything else. We are benefiting tremendously from all those advances. It's not like we're pouring funding into something and it's clunky and everything like that. It's really hot. It's really, really simultaneous. It's really, really quick, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, the thing is, it's all coming from the gaming industry. That's where it's coming from. It's being driven. But I just use we've developed fire investigation with a company who've done it for us. They've gone out now and made their own scenes, and they lease it back to fire services, which I think's quite a good model because it's a cheaper model. But the way I look at it, if every service in the UK took that up as a training, what you've done, you standardised training nationally. And with fire investigation, we're all aware that they're under scrutiny now with skills for justice courses and that. So,
a number of high-profile incidents. We want to make sure we're training people correctly.
Yeah. So this could be a way to kind of nationalise your training. You still need to go and do a real kind of investigation in a burnt scene. But if you do 50%...
They're rare. How to come across them, it's tough, and they're expensive to set up, and then you only get one hit at it sometimes, and then you've got to do the whole thing again.
And they're not green either.
No, they're not green. So hard to control and give each person the same experience as well.
Yeah, and one of the biggest things, and I think it's just starting to hit home a little bit now in the UK, but in America, they're looking into it massively, is contamination. The amount of firefighters
and the long-term effects. We've had a couple of guests on speaking about that. I know the Fire Brigades Union are hot on it at the minute. This is something that we're now seeing the result of, not mistakes, but perhaps just what we weren't aware of 20, 30 years ago, and now it's in the forefront of our minds.
That's modernisation, isn't it? We're finding stuff out now which we didn't know 20, 30 years ago. When I first joined, we'd never been enough.
We didn't know any better. We didn't do any better. But now we know better. We've got to do better.
So we have to change. So we have to change and modernise. And that's the way forward. If you can reduce contamination through carcinogens and toxins, you're going to reduce people's kind of health, improve people's health perhaps 20, 30 years' time. Who knows what I breathed in? Not wearing breathing apparatus at car fires when I joined. I remember being in a house fire, lying on the top of the stairs for the heat in breathing apparatus. And the old sub-officer in them days
behind you.
tugging on my leg saying,
Paul,
how's it
go on,
going?"
mate, get a bit closer.
But that was how it was.
It was, wasn't it?
And it was brilliant at the time, but now we look back and think, wow, did we really do that? yeah, but that's the kind of the benefit of hindsight. But we did a good job then, and we're doing an even better job now, and that's what it's about. To me, all the training we do, it's all about keeping firefighters safe, so they go home to their families at the end of the day. And a good trained firefighter, competent trained firefighter, delivers a great service to their community.
Thank you. Good luck today.
Yeah, cheers, thank you.
Liz Bradley, South Yorkshire Fire and Rescue Wildfire Response.
I love how you had to have a quick glance at it. Massive congratulations on today.
Yes, thank you.
How did you find the awards after missing out on them for 2 years?
It's actually my first time at this specific awards as well, so yeah, it's been really, really great.
It must have been a massive privilege just to be nominated for it. How does it feel to win, and what was the project and the work that you were involved in?
Yeah, so it was really, really great win. So it was based on a response to a wildfire that we had last year. So it was in the midst of, so it's quite early on in COVID that the wildfire hit. So it was really great response from the whole of the service having to manage that. And it was a really tough wildfire in a really, really strange location as well. So yeah, all of the work that went into it is really great that we've got this award.
It's the sort of thing we never really experience in the UK. I mean, Greece have had some tremendous challenges, and Australia, that's where it's more common for them. How much of a transition was this in terms of our standard operational response? This is something we train for fire, but it's such a really strange thing for us to have to get involved with. How resourceful did the team need to be to really come up with a response for it?
It was South Yorkshire's really first significant wildfire ever, really. So it was quite a learning curve for us, but we've done a lot of really great work following on from the wildfire and put a lot of new sort of procedures, new response plans in place. We've got new vehicles in place for specific wildfire response as well. So there's been a lot of great work that's come from it.
Have you been invited to share this across sort of national operational guidance? Do you think everybody else will be able to benefit from the learnings? Because hopefully we're not going to have to experience something like this again, but no doubt it's good that we capture those learnings.
So the learning went on both the national operational guidance, but it also went through the joint organisational learning as well for sort of like multi-agency learning that came from it as well.
Congratulations.
Yes, thank you.
Pete Owens for Cheshire Fire and Rescue Service. I was nominated for the Young Person Supporter of the Year.
Pete, a massive congratulations on it. I've done some work with fire cadets in the past, but this seems to almost be your life's passion. What is it that drew you to the work, and why do you keep doing it? I mean, you've clearly done such an incredible work this year.
It was a bit of, I was asked at the beginning to start it up.
I've got an opportunity for you, Pete.
Yeah, and sort of got rumbled into doing it and found it's going to sound very cheesy, but the difference you can make with the youth. Youth have got a bad reputation with antisocial behaviour and things like that, and not all of them are like that. A lot of them want to better themselves, want to achieve things, want to do something different, and if you feel you can give them that bit of a leapfrog to go on to bigger and better things, I found it quite worthwhile.
It's so incredibly challenging to adapt to the different learning styles of today. There's a few cadets here today as well. On top of the fact we're going through a massive amount of recruitment, you look across the UK Fire and Rescue Services now, there's like a whole transition of wealth of knowledge and experience leaving the services. I personally feel that now more than ever, this sort of work is really essential. How do we continue? I mean, you seem to have grasped an aspect of it, so for people's learnings out there, how do we engage with people that are learning in a different way and a different generation now?
I think we've got to give them something to aspire to and something to take their time up. Something that's to try and get them away from their friends where societies and industries and stuff like this isn't cool. It's, they want to do other things with their mates. Sometimes it's not cool to be a fire cadet or an army cadet or an air cadet.
It is. We just need to articulate it in the right way. We're surrounded by people here, absolutely incredible. The work you've been involved with, the work operational firefighters across the UK have done, it really is cool. We just need to find the best way for people to understand that.
It's difficult. We've got to try and reach out, but again, word of mouth, I'm quite strict with mine, so they'll support things like Remembrance Sunday. Mm-hmm. So when their friends see them marching in uniform, showing respects to things that have gone before them. It sounds a really big thing, but they've got to be the better person than the ones that are bickering and downtrodden them, really.
If we're able to capture that and lift up the work that you're doing, do you believe our best is yet to come with the fire service?
Definitely, yeah. Well, the youth are our next phase, aren't they? So if we're going to let our youth just sit at home and do nothing and play games and that, then there's not a lot of hope for us really. We've got to make them people who want to then aspire others.
For services that have had challenges trying to inspire their cadets, if they wanted to reach out to yourself, what's the best way for them to do so? If they wanted some help and guidance on trying to reinvigorate the cadets from a professional capacity, don't give out your personal details, but is there a way for them to reach out and try to share these learnings?
I mean, it's an individual, you've got to adapt it to the area that you are.
Yeah.
So really go along to any organisation that you can. It might not necessarily be fire service, it can be air cadets, sea cadets. There are lots of organisations out there doing some really good work with the youth. Just go along and see if you can help take some stuff in you. It might even make you a better person, you never know.
That's the hope. Pete, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
My name is Station Commander Tony Parkin. I'm from Walthamstow Fire Station.
We're here today recognising Mark Jordan for the Unsung Hero Award. You actually nominated him for it?
I did, yes.
Why did you choose to do that, and why is it important to recognise people in this way?
Mark is week in, week out doing work for the homeless in rain, sleet, snow, and he never gets a pat on the back for it, and I think he deserves it.
Now, you say doing work with the homeless, people hear fire and rescue services, they're like, hang on a minute, working with the homeless, we look at a lot about how we diversify and serve our communities. This is just a perfect example of that. How do we continue to adapt and change to the demands of our communities to do more stuff like this, do you think?
So Mark's starting out more outreach projects through the LFB at different boroughs. That's all in the infancy stage at the moment, but he's pushing it forward as we speak.
It's so important for people to appreciate that when people are facing those sorts of socio-economic challenges, they're often the people that we end up going to in derelict properties and void properties, people that struggle to be able to just look after themselves, even if they do have a property, whether they're hoarding or something like that. So people at this sort of level, I suppose, are actually our key customers.
Yes, and it's the homeless for me, always seems like a bit of a forgotten part of the community, because they have got no fixed abode and they've not got really much interaction with the emergency services. And this bridges that gap by going out week after week, putting clothes and food on someone is priceless.
Having 2 years away from the awards, how important is it for us to come back and recognise and acknowledge people like this?
It's amazing. It's amazing to actually interact with someone without wearing a mask.
Thanks so much for coming. Congratulations to Mark.
Thanks ever so much. I shall push it on. Cheers.
I'm Chris Castle from Kent Fire and Rescue Service.
Karen Fagg, Kent Fire and Rescue Service.
Sarah Stubblefield, Kent Fire and Rescue Service.
Ladies and gents, congratulations on the award. What was it you nominated for, and you've obviously won?
We were nominated for Project of the Year, and it's bringing national operational guidance into Kent Fire and Rescue Service and other services around the country.
Now, national operational guidance, we had someone on the podcast recently talking about that and how crucial it is to have everybody operating off the same hymn sheet. Obviously, we all do a similar job across the services. How important is this piece of work, and why was it so crucial to the fire and rescue services in the UK?
National operational guidance sets the benchmark for what we should be doing. It's how fire standards are now based on. So we felt in Kent that it was the right thing was to bring it in directly to firefighters so they're aware of the hazards, the control measures, the tactical actions that they should be operating to when they go out to incidents, and so that they can recognise where those are around the incident ground and be able to act appropriately and accordingly to protect themselves, but obviously the public.
Really empowers that sort of cross-border working as well, doesn't it? So people from different services and stuff like that aren't, as our resources become harder to come by, expanding population, when we're doing cross-border work, and it's important that everybody has a secure knowledge on how everybody's working, and we at least can do that interagency work really securely, I suppose.
Absolutely. If we're able to recognise the same hazards, and we recognise that when we're putting in the same control measures, then that helps us.
Having been away for 2 years from something like this, how important is it that we're actually recognising and rewarding and acknowledging, getting together like this and celebrating people in the emergency services?
It's really important that we can actually be together to recognise everything, that the hard work and everything that we've all put into this. It's really good.
What did it feel like getting nominated?
Absolutely awesome. Absolutely awesome.
Being here amongst so many incredible people, why is it a fact that we need to keep doing this, and again just acknowledging people to try and encourage those best practices, I suppose?
It is, and it's trying to get people to recognise other services and what they're doing and different awards that they are. Some of those awards were quite humbling. So to actually be here and be part of that, I think it's very important to keep it going.
Now, something like projects is something that people are challenged with across different services. Learning how to lead change and implement things like this can be very difficult in fire services with people stuck in their old ways. What advice would you have for somebody, having now won something like Project of the Year, not saying that we're experts, but what advice would you have for somebody that was trying to implement a project and trying to do it to the successful level you have?
Definitely to get strategic buy-in to the project. That's absolutely vital. Stick to the scope, and if the scope needs to change, there's a process behind that. And keep it moving forward. Others may not agree with the way that you're going, but just make sure that actually any project is kept going in what was the scope that's agreed. If you start to require a change of scope, there's a whole process behind that. But the more that you put into it, the more, like a snowball, it starts to build and build and build and becomes unobtainable after that.
So stay clear on your message, keep progress, and get those champions in place.
Absolutely.
Beautiful. Pick the right team. It's all about team.
We have an amazing team. We've been blessed with the most amazing team.
I will just finish by saying, you said, oh no, he led the team, he led the team. What's good leadership look like in the fire service? And pretend he's not here.
As someone that believes in what they're doing and passing that belief down to the rest of the team wants us to do the best job we can for him. So it's incredible to have a leader like you in our team.
It's infectious.
Yes.
Congratulations, everybody.
Thank
you very much.
Take care of yourselves.
So I'm Dave Etheridge, I'm the former Chief Fire Officer of Oxfordshire Fire Rescue Service, and I'm now Director and part of the team of Fire Knowledge Limited that have organised the awards today.
What's it like having been away for 2 years, coming back like this? Why is it so important that we're recognising people and acknowledging them for the great work they've done?
Well, I think it's fair to say that although we haven't had an awards for 2 years, the work of the Fire and Rescue Service has carried on and indeed has stepped up. You've only got to look at the work that services have done around COVID just to make you realise that, as usual, whenever there's a problem, the fire service is there to step up and absolutely deliver. For me personally, though, I think the most important thing today is that you see people for the first time in a few years, everybody's together in a room. You can sense the atmosphere, you can sense the celebration, you can sense the air of achievement, and actually it's just a wonderful thing to be part of, because we've spent the last 4 hours submerged in good news. And how many times in our lifetime at the moment do we have that opportunity? In this world of doom and gloom, this is an opportunity to shut the door to doom and gloom and just celebrate
Make
success.
that conscious decision to focus on celebrating people might seem so foreign to some people. Now, we've been faced with lots of challenges. Innovation and change has had to come to the forefront. I always think of the emergency services as like the master problem solvers. How much do you think that innovation and master problem solver has come to the forefront in this last year, and how do you think it's going to set us up for moving into this new normal, as people keep referring to it as, and continuing to serve the communities?
Well, I think if we use COVID as an example here, what happened with COVID was that COVID struck very, very quickly. So because it struck quickly, there wasn't time for any politics at a local level. There wasn't time for any budget managers to get involved. It was all about delivery and really quickly.
It calcified people, I think. They pulled them together.
That's right, absolutely.
It's like when you strike something that all forges and holds its strength,
very
doesn't
much
it?
so. So in other words, what we didn't have was any forced partnership or forced collaboration. There was an absolute public need for everybody to work together, so therefore the people on the front line instantly worked together. And as a consequence to that, we've almost reversed engineered the structure that needs to be above them now, rather than it be the other way around, where you create a structure and then try and create a service delivery platform. It's been the other way around, and I just hope that breaking down of the barriers that's gone on with COVID is now a springboard for more activity like that, where actually we put the customer, the client, the public first, and then reverse engineer our thinking. And then as senior leaders of the service, we then actually work out what we really should do, which is to support the front line. You know, we're not at the top of the organisation, we're at the bottom. We hold them up, they're at the top. The front line is the top, because that's the bit that touches the public. Our role is to hold them up, absolutely.
Now, we talked there about sort of interagency work and stuff like that. Strategically, we've tried to do it for decades, and we always wanted to do it. You know, we don't work in silos as much as we used to. A lot more interagency, a lot more JESIP working, but this has really just accelerated that, hasn't it? How much do you think this has leapt forward in the way that we're going to see agencies working together now, with how much support we've given to the NHS and how much we've had to draw our collective resources together? And like you said, forget about the budgetary constraints and stuff like that, not just signing blank checks, but how much of that do you think we're going to be able to hold on to and stop people going back into their silos?
I think one of the challenges that we'll face going forward is, over the last 18 months to 2 years, we've seen a monumental effort by everybody. We've seen local community support groups spring up. We've seen charities that were very small suddenly get very big. We've seen charities created. We've seen voluntary organisations step up. The coordination around all of those takes an awful lot of effort. And what I really hope now is that the relationships that have now been forged at a local level can carry on, so that whatever society throws, doesn't matter whether it's snow, whether it's flooding, whether we've got inclement weather, whether we've got whether we've got power outage, you name it, whatever the issue is, that same infrastructure come together.
No, we can do.
And I think what has happened now, one of the challenges of local resilience forums, and as a previous chair of a local resilience forum I know only too well, is that you have your category 1 responders around the table, you have your category 2 responders around the table, and there's this seat called the voluntary sector. And never before has there been a single person that represents the voluntary sector, because the voluntary sector is massive. It can be hundreds of organisations locally. And I think there's now probably a better way of making sure that the right person is in that seat at the top, because the voluntary sector is much more coordinated and much more
They're
joined
often
up
the
now in
first
their
ones
delivery.
with the boots on the ground, aren't they? Because they've got their pulse on the local community.
Very much so, yeah. They know the heartbeat. They know the operating environment that they're dealing with.
Congratulations on a great event.
Thank you very much. Thank you for coming.
Andrew.
Hello, Pete.
Congratulations
Thank
on
you.
a fantastic event. What
Thank
a
you very
room
much.
full of incredibly inspiring individuals. How did you find this year's awards?
I think I wouldn't be understating it to say it's the best year yet. I know you'd expect me to say that, but it really was terrific. I think we had a COVID bounce. I think the lockdown, 18 months, people were really desperate to get out and see each other, and it really came across. You know, even the minister was jumping up and down and getting excited. So, and it was learning a lot about what's been happening, and I think that was terrific.
Every corner you turned, it seemed to be somebody was taking a double take and embracing somebody else. You know, how important do you think it is for you guys to continue running events like this, where we can actually acknowledge and recognise and celebrate people? Because we've said before on a podcast, you know, in the Western world, we're not great at standing up and saying how great we are. That's why I think something like this is so crucial, where we actually say, you know what, no, you're incredible, you're inspiring, the work you've done is valuable and it needs acknowledging.
I think it's priceless. If you look at the contribution of fire and emergency responders, it's just huge across the board, and especially during COVID, especially the extra pressure and stress and worry that people have been subject to. And I think it was a real relief valve. I remember after Grenfell that there was a desire to get together and recognise the excellent work that people have done. It's just invaluable. And I just sort of label it the feel-good event of the year. And it's just before Christmas, and it just works out
Just
really
seems
well.
like the perfect storm, doesn't it?
And we have, it's just, there's a great vibe.
COVID, in a kind of a morbid way, and the pandemic in general, has been an opportunity to sort of test and calcify everyone's ability to be just incredibly resourceful, whether it's from a technological perspective, from a shared working perspective. This has just been like a strange, unfortunate platform where people have really stepped up, don't you think?
Absolutely, and I think we label the winners, as it were. I think it should be the award.
It's a strange term.
It is.
But
it's they're all winners. It should be the award goes to. It's just different degrees of, or different variations of a theme, which is, as you mentioned, is around innovation. It's around doing things that the can-do attitude that the fire, as you well know, the fire and emergency services do so well. But it's in so many different facets. And I think some of the extra work that people take on is truly phenomenal. It deserves recognising. And when you talk about the work that needs to be done on a national scale, there's words like reform, that things need overhauling, and systems quite often do. Of course they do. We always improve. But what gets lost in that conversation is the remarkable activity that the individuals and teams and people within the service carry on regardless of the wider situation. And I think that needs to be constantly reminded, and constantly remind the politicians, ourselves, leaders, that this work never stops. It always continues, and it should always be recognised. And what we need to do, in a broader sense, is to make sure that personnel are supported properly through things like we've talked about, personal development, so that they've got the opportunity to do more of this stuff that works so well and is such a great contributor to public health and well-being and safety. That was a long answer, Pete, but you've interviewed me before, so you're getting used to this.
Given how much the emergency services continues to diversify in a wonderful way, we see awards such as BAME and Women in the Fire Service and Project of the Year and Service of the Year, and the lifetime contributions to the service. How do you manage to discipline yourself not to come up with more and more awards? Because there's so many unique parts of the emergency services that in their own way deserve that acknowledgement. How do you manage to stop just wanting to acknowledge more and more people, I suppose?
To be honest, I think we're going to fail miserably at that because I was speaking to the Minister about introducing another couple of awards that he's interested in judging. Yeah. And I don't want to give away too much of this moment, but we're going to be having other conversations around a more nationally recognised and public voted award. Yeah. Now, that aside, and we will introduce that at some point. That aside, yes, it's about recognising different areas. And you mentioned BAME, you mentioned LGBT+. Now, these categories only exist because everything isn't level. There isn't a level playing field. So until there is, we will continue to recognise the most influential woman in fire, etc. And hopefully one day we won't need to do that. We won't need to differentiate. But in the meantime, we need to elevate and put a spotlight on great performances in these different areas. But truth be told, there is a levelness, a leveling up. I don't know, but there's a sort of level playing field around this general high standard of contributions. That's the defining factor. Is that these nominees, they're all, as I said, they're all winners. They've contributed massively towards public health, safety, well-being, their organisations. That's the kind of uniform aspect to the awards.
Now, you did acknowledge your team towards the end. This year, I imagine more so than ever, has been one of the most challenging ones to run, with everything that's going on, with different COVID restrictions and all that sort of stuff. Do you think you're going to do it again next year?
We certainly will do it again next year. We may need a bigger venue.
I hope so.
These are the good problems to have rather than the bad problems. I think there's such a support and energy from the sector from when we launched these awards only a few years ago. And it's really it gets bigger and bigger and more exciting each year. All I want to do is make sure that every fire and rescue service nominates their personnel, that they put their people on the map by getting involved. We've got a good spread, but we can always increase that.
Well, a personal thank you from me for introducing me to so many incredible people that if it wasn't for your event, I think myself and the wider emergency services sector probably would never know that these unsung heroes, which I suppose is the whole idea of all of it really, are out there still in the darkness, serving the light, doing exactly what we need them to do to keep our community safe. So congratulations on a great event, and we'll see you next year.
Thank you very much, Pete. Cheers.
Well, there you have it, folks. That was my time down at the awards this year. It was a real privilege to be invited down, and to be honest, kind of like overwhelming to see all the incredible people in one room. It's a really beautiful building. If you've never been down there, I suggest you get nominated for next year's when they roll around. So if you're part of the emergency services and you do have somebody incredible that you think is worth recognising, that's kind of a trick question because I know they do exist in every single service out there, then be sure to get your nominations in for next year, and who knows, maybe I'll see you there. Maybe I will turn into you in a crowded room and walking over with a microphone in hand, and we will share a conversation just as I did with some of the incredible people that were there this year. Now, off the back of that, we of course made some wonderful connections. It was wonderful to see people that we'd met before, but also meeting people for the first time, and many of which are going to come on and share their stories on the podcast. So be sure to keep your finger on the pulse. Be sure to hit subscribe on the podcast. It's the best way to support us. It's the best way to keep in touch. It's the best way for you to know what's happening in the world of the emergency services and keep developing yourself personally and professionally. It's a privilege to be bringing these stories to you, and I thank you for donating your time. I thank you for being here and listening, for lending your ears to us. So a big thanks for coming back to the Firefighters podcast. It's a real privilege to have you. I hope you enjoyed hearing about the incredible people at this year's awards, and stay tuned because we're going to have some incredible people coming up on future episodes. And this is the place to hear about it. So until next time, look after yourselves. Please support your emergency services no matter where you are in the world. And we'll see you again real soon, right here on the Firefighters Podcast.